Majority of the entrepreneurs who are planning to establish a company in Turkey know about joint stock companies. However, generally they do not know about the procedures and differences from other company types. In this video we are planning to focus more on opening a joint stock company in Turkey. In Turkish language, joint stock companies refer anonim şirket. Therefore, opening an anonim şirket, or its abbreviation opening an AS in Turkey or opening an JS in Turkey, may sound familiar to many investors. Joint stock companies are one of the most common capital companies. Opening a joint stock company in Turkey is possible for foreigners. It can be established for any purpose that is not against the law. Joint stock companies in Turkey is usually established to carry out larger-scale businesses than limited liability companies. With how many people is a joint stock company established? The joint stock companies can be established in Turkey by a single natural or legal person. An upper limit for the number of joint stock companies has not been determined. Companies with more than 500 shareholders must comply with the regulations of the Capital Markets Board. The liability in joint stock companies is different from that of a limited companies in Turkey. Company shareholders are liable for company debts only in proportion to their capital committed to the company. Who can establish a joint stock company? As we mentioned, the shareholder of the joint stock company in Turkey does not have to be a real person. Legal entities can also establish a joint stock company or become shareholders like real persons. The situation is the same for foreign nationals. They can establish joint stock companies in Turkey and become shareholder. How is the joint stock company establishment procedures in Turkey? Opening a joint stock company in Turkey is a bit more complex and more challenging in terms of legal procedures, compared to a limited companies in Turkey. Since the steps are a bit more complex compared to limited liability companies, we strongly advise you to work with a consultant. Additionally, in this type of company, quarter of the company capital shall be deposited to bank account before the company formation in Turkey. Therefore, please do not forget to check the process about bank account opening. What are the differences between a joint stock company and a limited company in Turkey? Although the establishment process is a bit more difficult, the advantages of establishing a joint stock company are more than a limited company. Let's examine the differences between joint stock and limited liability companies. At joint stock company, share transfer is easy and fast. At limited liability company, share transfer is a bit more difficult process. At joint stock company, company can issue securities. At limited liability company, company cannot issue securities. At joint stock company, company can be open to the public. At limited liability company, company cannot be open to the public. At joint stock company, there is no upper limit on the number of partners. At limited liability company, there can be maximum of 50 partners. At joint stock company, minimum capital is 50,000 Turkish liras. At limited liability company, minimum capital is 10,000 Turkish liras. At joint stock company, company can operate in the banking and insurance field. At limited liability company, company cannot operate in the banking and insurance field. How much capital is required to establish a joint stock company in Turkey? The minimum capital amount of the joint stock company has been determined as 50,000 Turkish liras. According to the law of attorneyship, joint stock companies with a capital of 5 times or more than the basic capital specified in the Turkish Commercial Code must have a contracted lawyer. In other words, a joint stock company with a capital of 250,000 or more is subject to the obligation of hiring a lawyer. A quarter of the shares committed in cash in the joint stock company capital must be paid before registration, and the remaining within 24 months following registration. As you can see, the joint stock companies have some crucial elements. For further information, please reach us over WhatsApp or email.